a little bit more, not just support for the books, but maybe a little more insight into what I'm working. I could have sharpened the books a little better, but I didn't do it. And I think it's kind of late now. I'm up to number 25. I'm not sure how I'd react to somebody saying, well, you know, maybe you need a little bit more character development. Shut up. So
Hmm. So what do you read for fun?
I read everything. Um, I read, when I started, when I was a kid, I read mysteries an awful lot. I read maybe 5 mysteries for every non-mystery, you know? And when I was plotting out, and when I got out of college and I was working, chasing a journalism career, I tried to write some books and they were just awful. Oh my God. And I kept them. I had this briefcase that's now, it's in my office now, but it used to be up in the attic. And I remember we're up there in the attic and I came across it and I opened it and there's these books. I had titles for books like Something Happened. I thought that was a great title for a book, or In Search of Things. I swear to God. And I'm reading this stuff and I'm going, who wrote this crap? I mean, my God, this was bad. And I swear to God, if you read it and read my stuff, you would not think I did both. You would think, you know, kidding? Anyway, when I wrote Penance, when I decided, okay, if I'm going to write a book, now's the time. And I wrote my first book, Penance. It wasn't meant to be a crime novel. I was channeling Gore Vidal. I was going to write about political corruption. And as I'm plotting out the book, it occurred to me, I throw a couple of bodies on the floor. This would make a great, great crime novel. And so I did. And as I said before, I won the Edgar Award. So I tell people that I didn't choose mysteries so much as mysteries chose me. And that's because I was so immersed in the conventions of the crime novel. I understood it so well. So I just slid into it. But you go back to what I read, back then I would read 5 crime novels for every non-novel. Now it's 50-50. You know, I'll read Louise Erdrich. I'll read Kurt Vonnegut. I'll read Charles Dickens, catch up on some stuff I missed. I'll read whatever comes along that interests me, along with all the crime novels. I've read all the books that were nominated for the Minnesota Book Award. I read Kruger stuff. I read Jess Lowry. I read a lot of my friends whose books I like, just to keep up. I'll go to Once Upon a Crime and I'll ask Devin, who runs it now, and say, hey, help me out. Who's out there? And she'll give me what's her name, Tracy Clark, and you know, those kind of books. So now it's kind of 50-50. I just finished a Streel by Mary Logue, which takes place in Deadwood in the I think early 70s, 1870s. Right? I no, it couldn't be that long. I think it's before Custer and all of that. So it's in between the war, the Civil War, and the Plain Indian Wars. And you know, so I try to keep up, but God, there's so many books in so little time, and I don't like to read a lot while I'm writing. I don't want somebody else's stuff to get in my head because I have enough problems getting my own head. So, you know, I read a lot less than I think all of you probably do.
There's a new question in the chat about, do you know who done it when you begin writing your work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a running argument among writers. like I say, I outline. Now, my outlines aren't nearly as tight as they used to be, and they're not carved in granite. I will deviate. I'll get an idea and go, oh, hey, let's try this. And I have changed the endings of books as I approach, and I go, oh, you got to try this instead, and, you know, so on and so forth. But I always know how the book ends before it begins. Always. And I beg you all, if you're going to write a book, do that. I don't care if you outline. I don't care if you're like Elmore Leonard and you just sit there and type. I tell you my Elmore Leonard story in a minute. I think the reason so many good books have bad endings is because the writer doesn't know how the book ends either. They look and they go, oh, I got 80, 90,000 words. I got to wrap this sucker up. They don't know how it's going to end either. And because of that, you get what sounds like a great book. And all of a sudden you're like, what? And that's because they didn't know. You don't have to know how you get to the ending, but you got to know what the ending is so you can carve your way to it, so that you can funnel the action to it. It gives more high impact. This is my, you know, and you get a lot of people who don't do that. They'll, oh, you know, it can be, writers can be condescending, sure. And so you'll get that from some people. Now, having told you this, and by the way, Lawrence Block agrees with me. You got to know how the book ends before it begins. Thank you, Larry Block. My hero was Elmore Leonard. And I got to call him Dutch because I bought him some non-alcoholic beers because he didn't drink. But he would hang out in bars because it was the only place he was allowed to smoke. And he smoked like crazy. Well, kid, if you're going to buy me a beer, you got to call me Dutch. And I remember chatting with him about Westerns and God knows what else for hours. And I asked him once, you know, if he was working on something. He goes, yeah, I'm about 25 pages in. And I go, what's it about? And he says, I don't know yet. What? What? How can you not know? Now, this is my guy. This is the guy I would emulate. If somebody put my name next to his in a paragraph, I'd be really, really happy. Unless it said, you take the great work of Elmore Leonard compared to this chump. But, you know, but anyway, it's a lot of great writers just sit down and write and figure it out as they go along. On the other hand, he told me a story where he was working on a book called Out of Time, Out of Space. Where am I? I got it on I'm pretty sure I've got it on my shelf right here. Well, it doesn't matter. They made a George Clooney movie out of it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, he was writing the book, and it dealt with federal marshals chasing escaped criminals, escaped prisoners. And then he introduced a new character about a quarter of a way through the book. And he liked that character so much that he decided that book was going to be about that character, Karen Cisco. And that later became a TV series, among other things. And he chopped the first quarter of the book off. But he doesn't throw anything away. No writer throws anything away. And he kept it. And that later became a short story called Fire in the Hole, which became the TV series Justified.
Ooh.
So good for Mr. Leonard, but at the same time, when he told me the story, I was like, God, I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine just sitting there and writing 30,000 words and then go, you know what? I got another idea. But apparently it's done. So whatever works for you, like I said, whatever gets you through the book is a good thing. But know how it ends, damn it. Any other questions? The book I'm working on now, not the one I'm working on now, let me rephrase that. The book that's coming out in May 25th, Tuesday, May 25th. I actually have a cover around here somewhere. What doesn't kill us. This is an experiment. And God, I hope everybody likes it, because what I did was, well, I'll read you the first lines. I was shot in the back at close range by a .32 caliber handgun, yet did not die, at least not permanently. Dr. Lillian Linder, the emergency medical specialist who saved my life, said it was a miracle. Lily had patched me up on numerous occasions over the past decade, though, and I knew that she was prone to hyperbole. The cops, of course, were anxious to interview me, but Lil had placed me in a coma. So the first page is basically McKenzie explaining that he's in a coma. And it wouldn't matter because he didn't know who shot him. He didn't know why he was shot. He was as surprised at being shot as the woman was that he fell against and who screamed. Then it goes on to say that eventually he came out of the coma and all of his friends explained to him what had happened and why. Apparently he had more friends you could shake a stick at. And their story began pretty much where his story ended. It began with the scream. And then I start chapter 1. And McKenzie's not in the book. All of his friends, now he tells the story in first person because he's telling the story based on what all these people told him later about what had happened. So it brings all of these people from all of these books over the years. It brings Heavenly back. It brings Bobby Dunson's taking care of the investigation. It brings up this cop, the lead detective who can't stand McKenzie, could never stand McKenzie. It brings back Chopper. It brings back Herzog. It brings back Schroeder, the private investigator. It brings back his FBI buddy. And all of these guys, and it brings back the Muhlenhaus girl, if you remember her. It brings back the sheriff from Bayfield or Bayport, wherever the hell that is. And all of these characters come into the story to try and find out who shot him and why, and what McKenzie was doing and how he got involved in all of this stuff. And he doesn't appear again until the very end, until the epilogue, after everything is settled. And he wakes up from the coma and people start telling him what's going on, and he pieces the story together. So it's a third person story with multiple characters told in a first person voice. And I have no idea how this is going to be received. The reviews I've read so far have been like, God, this was hard to write, you people. Come on, give me some love. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
It sounds very interesting. And, I think that's what keeps readers coming back to an author when it isn't a formula. It isn't always the same with every book that you write. It keeps our interest. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you. And I hope that's true. I try really hard not to have a formula. I try really hard not to write the same book over and over again. I mean, you look at the 18 McKenzie novels. Some of them are very dark and violent, and some of them are very lighthearted, very much 1930s kind of stories. And some of them, some of them are heist books. I mean, The Last Kind Word, he robs a bank, he robs a remote vault. Some of them are like the art books with Heavenly, where there's your stolen paintings in the wind and things like that. So I try to do that. I try not to write the same book over and over again. And so far so good. We'll see how much longer they keep paying me to do it. But I got the Taylor books. I'm bringing him back again, so we'll see.
Great. And I have to say, I appreciate how your characters evolve as well, because some authors have a set of characters and they stay the same age. They never, the relationships don't change much. And, I miss your people in between books, and I'm wondering what they're doing. And I'm happy to find out more about them in the next book that you write. So
well, I that's part of it too. Not writing the same book twice. McKenzie actually ages. In the very first book in Hard Ticket Home, he's 37. Now he's pushing 45. So he's aged like 8 years in the last 16, 17 books. And I want to keep that up. The problem is aging them too quickly. Because I have a friend of mine, Reed Farrell Coleman, who had a series of books with an aging private investigator named Mo Proctor. And he ended up ending the series because Mo just got to an age where he shouldn't be able to do this stuff anymore. It was just no longer realistic, and he didn't want to keep him that age. Now, Sue Grafton, who I had the pleasure of meeting, Kinsey Milhone never aged. I think she aged all of 16 weeks in the 25 books that she wrote. And it was always, and it never went past the 80s. One of my problems is that he is aging, and the books very much are set in the period that I write the book in. And things have changed. The use of computers have changed. Emails have changed. The things that you could do as a private investigator and as a private citizen have changed. When I wrote Hard Ticket Home, for example, you want to get some mail, somebody's divorce information, you had to go downtown, and you had to go through the ledgers, and you had to go do all of this stuff. Now you can go to the computer. You can go to the Minnesota Supreme Court has a link. I could find out everything that you guys have ever done that involves a court, from a parking ticket to being sued to any kind of court thing, instantly. But when I first started writing the books, I could go to the DMV and get your driving history. I could take your license plate, go to the DMV, spend, I think it was all of $4.50, and I can get your driver's history. I can get where you live. I can get all of that stuff. That was then. Now you can't. And the reason you can't was because of, I'm trying to think of her name. She is a TV personality on Fox News in the morning. Her name will come to me as soon as we're done here. But she's a very attractive woman. And it turned out that something like 1,500 people had checked her history, her driving history, found out where she lived and stuff like this. And so she sued the DMV. And the DMV said, yeah, you're right. And they closed it down, so you can't do that anymore. On the other hand, there's a lot of other ways for me to get information about you. So you try to keep up to date, with how you learn things. With What Doesn't Kill Us, for example, the book coming out, there's an awful lot of research that's done. that helps fuel the book. Now, one of the reasons I tell you this is because Sue Grafton told me many years ago that one of the reasons that she didn't age Kinsey, and she left Kinsey in, I think it was like 1987 or something like that, was so she didn't have to deal with the technology. She didn't have to change with the times. Kinsey doesn't have a cell phone, you know? Kinsey still works the way they used to work in the 80s. And Susie was just happy as a clam to deal with that because she didn't want any deal with any of that other problems that I end up dealing with, and most of the writers do. So good for Sue Grafton.
Yeah. There any other questions out there before we up our time together here?
Work with me, you guys. Work with me. I wanted to ask Evenson, who doesn't have a microphone, if this person is related to Connie Evenson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No, I'm not. I know the name, but I'm not related to her.
Okay. Connie Evenson's a jazz singer and in the cities. And McKenzie is a jazz guy. And so I'm always writing about, and his girlfriend owns a jazz club. And isn't that 1950s? That's right straight out of Peter Gunn. And so I'm always writing about the local singers, and Connie Evenson is like my favorite singer. So she's in like 9 books. And but I put people in books, you know, that Mackenzie's listening to them, or you know, that they're playing in the big room at the jazz club and things like this. And I get a lot of love. I mean, Louise Knudsen, for example, Mary Louise Knudsen, jazz pianist. Somebody gave her a copy of my book in which her name is in it. Now we're like besties. I mean, she just loves me. She's always posting what am I doing, you know, that kind of thing. And Patty Peterson and More by Four, and like I said, Connie Evenson, and so yeah. I'll get shout outs. They'll be on stage and they'll go, "Oh, our good friend, the award-winning author."
Nice.
It's a perk. I don't get any free tickets, but I'll get call outs.
Oh, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to get together with us tonight. This has really been fun and, of course, interesting. And we really hope that you'll be able to come and see our library. It's a beautiful old Carnegie library, and we're very, very proud of it. And we hope that you can come here in person.
Well, I'm grateful that you invited me to do this. It's the first time I wore a shirt with buttons in like a year. So, you know, much less a jacket. So that was an excuse. But yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All righty. Well, you take care, and I hope you'll keep in touch when, well, we'll know when your new book comes out somehow anyway, but
May 25th.
I'm writing that down, May 25th. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, you guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.